Well, hello everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar, Smarter Project Management with Visual Connections, from personal events to business deliverables, getting it all done in the brain. That's a long title for today's webinar that is all about project management, but project management can mean so many different things to so many different people. Whether you're managing a business project or a personal one, a family get-together. I'm going to be covering some of my own personal events that I have going on in my life, in my real brain that I use on a daily basis. So I'm excited to share those with you. And also, I've got a sample business brain that I'm sort of a new, different sample business brain. If you've ever joined a Brain 101 class, there's a sample business brain that I share there. This one is a little bit different. It's all about just actual projects, marketing campaigns, writing projects, website launch, etc. And this is a sample brain. You're seeing it on the screen right now in what we call wander mode, where sort of a nice brainstorming mode where you can just see the existing thoughts, existing content you have without actually clicking on any of the thoughts. So I'll jump out of wander mode in just a moment and take you on a tour of this brain. Then we'll jump into my own personal brain and talk about project management for personal events as well. But let me just give you a brief background of the brain application. Pieces of information in the brain are what we call thoughts. And a thought can be anything from just a placeholder that other related pieces of information are connected to an actual file, a web page, a note, or a calendar event. So any type of digital data can be associated with a thought in your brain. And I mentioned thoughts are related to one another. And that's really the key fundamental of the brain application, is that information is presented to you according to its relationship with other pieces of information. And we draw those connections manually through the brain. Now, we've got many different import capabilities in the application. Those are some more advanced features that I won't be going into today. Today, I'm really focusing on building your brain and managing your projects step by step, thought by thought, and all of the different features of the brain application that can help you achieve your goal. So not just to manage the project, but see it through from start to finish. So let me take you on a quick tour. You can see under the current active thought, I've got my marketing campaign. So sort of my business area of where I'm setting up my different marketing events that I have coming up. And you'll notice that as soon as I clicked on the thought, that thought moved into the center of the Plex and displayed all related information around it. So we call that the active thought, the current thought in the center of the brain. Down below are the subcategories. So these are child thoughts of my marketing campaign. So below I've got my ad copy, deadlines, my budget, target audience, etc. So some notes for myself, some different files and documents, and even a list of graphic designers, a web link to some graphic designers I'm looking into. So over to the right, we have sibling thoughts. Those are thoughts that share one or more of the same parent thoughts, and parent thoughts appear above the active thought. Now notice marketing campaign falls into two different categories. It was a child thought of my current project, so right from my home thought, I can go right into my marketing campaign. But notice that marketing campaign also falls under the category of business development, sort of another branch or another area within this brain. And that's one of the key features of the brain application, is that we can have all of these cross-references. So you're not just always following a very linear outline of projects that you're putting into. Projects are very nonlinear. They flow, they change, they're modified along the way, and the brain allows you or compensates for those irregularities within a project that you may be working on. Notice that I'm working on this project with Sarah Jones. So I've got a jump thought over to Sarah. And a jump thought is a very special type of relationship between the active thought and the jump thought. It's related, but it doesn't necessarily fall into any type of subcategory or hierarchy. So in other words, Sarah I could click and drag, and as you can see, I can make Sarah the child thought below marketing campaign. So I'm sort of restructuring my thoughts now. Now Sarah's a subcategory of my marketing campaign. That really doesn't make sense. Sarah's helping me with the marketing campaign. She doesn't own the marketing campaign, so I don't have her linked as a parent thought. It's really just a personal choice when you decide to link two thoughts and how you want them linked together within the brain. And you can always go back and modify those relationships. So I can even connect Sarah to a completely different thought. Let's say Sarah's going to be helping me with my writing projects. I can click and drag a link to link those two thoughts to one another, and then right-click on the link between marketing campaign Sarah and select Unlink. So I've, in essence, just moved her over into a different category. She's no longer going to be helping me with marketing. She's going to be focused on our writing projects, our business writing projects that we have working on. And so there she's linked. And of course, when I activate Sarah's thought, goes to her thought, you can see that she falls under the category of expert. I can have other links if she's part of my team that she's linked to. And the notes area, which we'll talk about notes and attachments here in just a moment, can obviously have her contact information. So let's start there. I'm going to click over into my notes, and I'm going to be spending a lot of time in the notes area today. And that's a really great thing because the notes are actually my favorite feature of the Brain application. In my own brains that I create, anytime I create a thought for a person, I've got their phone number. So I'll add that in for Sarah. I've got her email address, Twitter feed, or even meeting notes that we're keeping together. So we'll be working on writing projects through June of 2020. So just a reference, in June of 2020, she's going to be moving into a different department within our company. So I'm just, now that I've gained that knowledge, I don't want to forget about it. So come July next year, when I think, oh, I'm going to revamp some of these marketing projects, and I go to Sarah's thought, I'm reminded by my digital brain that she's moved on to another department within the organization, and I need to find someone else to start helping with these marketing, or these writing projects. So again, we'll be talking in greater detail, much greater detail, about the notes within the brain as well. Let's go ahead and jump over into another area where I do have, here I've got some personal projects and a kitchen renovation. So once again, there you can see right away, I'm keeping track of a few different contractors and designers that I'm working with. I've got that information over in the notes, and my budget, more contractors, kitchen designs, etc., all listed below and easily at my disposal. So kitchen designs, notice I can mouse over a thought, and here I have a graphic, a zoomable icon, we like to call those. So the brain is much more than just a notes taking or a linear outline of a project that you're following. We have visual cues, we have documents, etc., that really help to advance a project that you may be working on. And I'll be talking about those in much more detail as well. And this brain, as I said, will be available for you to download. So I really want to just give you a high-level overview of the content of this brain and let you explore this brain on your own. Again, on the recording page that you'll receive at the end of the demo today, you'll have a link to download this brain and play around with it. You will not, unfortunately, get a copy of my own personal brain where I keep track of my projects that I'm working on. So I'll share that more in depth with you now. I'm going to jump over to another tab where I have another brain open, and this is my own personal brain. This is where I keep track of events that are going on in my life, important information, phone numbers, contact information, favorite web pages, and as today's subject matter includes, project management, so active projects that I'm working on. And as many of you may know, we're coming up on the U.S. holiday of Thanksgiving. So Thanksgiving to me is just one of the most wonderful times of the year. I absolutely love it. And in a way, I sort of treat Thanksgiving Day with a bit of project management in mind. It is quite a project to pull off a really big dinner for well over 20 guests that my wife and I will be having this year. And so I just wanted to give you a real example of how I manage everything that's going on with, in this case, Thanksgiving. And I've already created one thought here in my brain for my 2019 schedule. I took my 2018 schedule. Sometimes I save that older information, sometimes not. I had sort of the timeline of what had to be done next year building up to Thanksgiving. And I simply wiped it out and I've started from scratch. So I've started putting together, this is just the very early stages of my 2019 Thanksgiving schedule. And as you can see, I'm just keeping track in the notes, a very linear order of what's happening. So Tuesday night, I'll be putting together pie crusts, and I've got actually to put some table extensions together. And it's really just a lot of housework. Then moving into Wednesday, working on more food items. And Thursday, I'm really reverse engineering. You know, the guests show up at 4, or excuse me, the guests show up at 2, dinner's at 4. And so I'm reversing exactly when things are going to happen during that day. I have my kids put together a fun little thing that we call an appetizer tree. We're actually going to talk about that more in just a moment as well. And as something comes to mind, the notes are a really, really great idea capture tool. So just quick capture ideas and thoughts you have about a particular project that you're working on. So I'm obviously not done yet. And here there's some very basic formatting tools that I can use to sort of adjust the look and feel of the notes. The notes themselves are really intended to be easy to use, quick capture ideas and text management. You can add images, and I think I'll have some thoughts here with some images as well. But if you're really designing like an invitation to Thanksgiving or a wedding invitation or putting together a sales form of your monthly sales documents with calculated tables and cells, etc., that's probably the time when you would want to add an attachment to a thought, a file attachment, whereas if you're just making a rough outline, you've got a couple of ideas, you want to jot them down, the notes are a great way to do that. So here, if I'm reverse engineering, the turkey's going to be about 4.5 hours plus another half hour of resting. So turkey comes out at 3:30. And that means, if my math in my head is correct, the turkey's going to go in around, let's see, if it goes in at noon, it would come out at 4. So we need to back that up, let's say around 1 o'clock, or excuse me, 11 o'clock. Let me get my cursor in the right place there. So around 11 a.m., so I'll come back and spend some more time here obviously later. So throughout the day, I'm staying on schedule and I'm not getting to my final goal, which is 4 p.m. dinner. That's the final step in this project. And the brain will help assure that I get to that goal and everything gets checked off the list along the way. So I stay on schedule. And you better believe that I will have these notes with me on Thanksgiving Day throughout the day and be checking in on this thought in the days prior. I'm going to be talking a little bit more in the demo today about syncing this brain so I can access my tables and my notes and my thoughts and my links from my iPhone, so from a mobile device as well. So now this is great. This is a lot of helpful information that's just in a very linear list, but there's a lot of tools that go into this. Pies, well, I can't just make a pie off the top of my head. I need to get into my recipes. So I've got easy access to all the tools that I need, whether it's a recipe, a guide, a document, a web link, a phone number, etc. All of that information is right here at my fingertips. So if I want to pull up my favorite apple pie recipe, there we go. I just click on the thought and I've previously pasted this information here into the web. Now, if I'm looking online for this information, I mentioned earlier that my kids and I like to make this nice little we call it the appetizer tree. And I actually have a web link open and I know how to make an appetizer tree off the top of my head. It's actually really easy to do, and it's a lot of fun, and the kids love putting it together. And so this year's appetizer tree. In the past year, it's been little mini sausages and cheese and things. This year, it's going to be the olives. So when I find something with my project that is going to be helpful, I can simply right-click and copy the image. There's a lot of different ways we can get content into the brain. Here, I've just copied an image, and I'll create a new thought called appetizer tree. And now I can right-click and paste this on the thought. I've got an image on my clipboard. I can right-click and paste that image. So that's how I get that nice zoomable icon we talked about earlier. Or over here in the notes, I can right-click and paste as well. So a lot of ways I can get that content there into the brain. Now, if I want to really take this to the next level and find a web page with a lot of detailed information about how to really spice up your appetizer tree, there's another trick that I want to share with you. And this is really where we're talking about building the brain for your project. I've got my checklist, and now I'm collecting all of my resources. So in this scenario, I've got my thought called appetizer tree. I'm actually going to click on F4. Now, F4 is my keyboard shortcut for searching the web. You can customize your own keyboard shortcuts, but I'm searching the web for any topics on appetizer tree. And maybe I'll change this from Bing, or from Google rather, to Bing, and click on search. So the brain will actually go out and search for you without leaving the application. I've got a thought that I've created, and I want to find some additional information on it. And here's a multitude of different appetizer tree types. This is kind of interesting. So maybe I want to save this video. And here I can actually, I don't want to listen to that. There, we'll pause it. So that actually opened up YouTube, but I will drag and drop this right into the brain. And already they're talking about the sort of the structure and the different sizes. So sorry about that. So maybe there's some helpful information on this website that is really going to give me a few ideas on how to spruce this up. And so I've just drag and dropped from the URL directly into my brain. It creates a new thought, and the thought name is actually whatever the tab or title name is on the actual website. And there you can see it loads up right there in the built-in browser, in the brain's built-in browser. And this is a lot of fun because now I've got a couple of different examples I've never experimented with, peppers, or it looks like that's some kind of weird cauliflower. A lot of fun. Gathering that information, adding it into the brain. I can review it at a later date. And if I decide to go with one of those options, we do have a lot of vegetarians showing up at my Thanksgiving this year. So being as there's a cauliflower tree, that looks really interesting. I'm just going to make a note. Try a veggie tree this year. So just a nice little note to myself, so when I come back and review this this area of my brain, I don't lose any of those ideas or thoughts that I have when it comes to taking care of this step of the process. In a few days from now, I'll be putting together my grocery list, and I'm definitely going to be going through thought by thought, finding everything that I need. Where's my grocery list going to appear? Well, I'll make a thought. 2019. So my grocery list will be right here in my brain so I don't lose track. Maybe I should actually link that up to that Thanksgiving thought and unlink it from recipes. I'll review the recipe area in order to generate my list. So there I've moved it up to a jump thought for Thanksgiving. So that's really a nice, just simple way to take care of a project. You typically have a list of steps along the way and a lot of different helpful resources. And notice this goes everywhere from recipes to different wines that my family likes and Thanksgiving help as well. And notice under Thanksgiving help, I've got links to Williams-Sonoma, so resources that I might need to purchase, special pans or dishes, etc. Turkey on the grill, Crate and Barrel, Weber Grill, etc. So a lot of helpful tips there. And I even have a don't forget on my Thanksgiving help that the turkey I forget how long the turkey needs to sit out. Is it an hour? Is it 10 minutes? I constantly forget that information. So finally, thank goodness, 1 year, I just made a note here. Don't forget the turkey resting is just 20 to 30 minutes. And also I've got one brother-in-law that absolutely loves cranberry in the can. It has to be shaped like the can. So once again, helpful information that I will not forget when it comes time to, again, put my list together and fulfill the task of pulling off this huge Thanksgiving dinner. Another method that exists within the brain that I really, really love are checklists. And I'll stay sort of on the, I'm going to jump back to my home thought and jump over to, not personal, sorry, over to my weekend checklist where I believe I do have a checklist that I'm working on. So I'm working on finishing a remodel. I'm in the final stages of finishing a remodel in my basement. And here is where I utilize a checklist. So I can keep track of exactly what step has been done, what the next step is. I can reorder this if I ever need to from time to time and really stay focused and stay on track. Now the checklist within the brain, very, very easy to use, very popular within the GTD community, Getting Things Done. If you've ever read the book Getting Things Done by David Allen, a very popular author of Getting Things Done, and he actually uses the brain and loves the checklist, as I do as well. So the checklist keeps it all right there in front of me in a reliable source. I always know what's been done, what's next, etc. And this past few days, I actually didn't check these off my list because I wanted to do it on today's webinar. So the hallway has been painted. The doors have been painted. I can check that off. And the trim. So all the painting there is done. And I can simply check those 3 steps off the list. I've got a little bit more tiling to do and install a sink and toilet in the bathroom, and we're all set. So it's going to be a busy weekend for me. Now, adding a checklist in the brain is very simple. Let's say I have a few more steps. I'm just going to hit enter down here to give myself some room. There's a little button in the brain notes. Now, my brain notes are expanded. You can have the collapsed version or the expanded version, and that's a setting in your options of the brain. So I've got my buttons all expanded, so when I see my notes toolbar, all the different formatting options are there for me. And there's an option to create a checklist. So I simply click on the checklist button, and it's really just like I can turn on and off, to make this an ordered list, an unordered list, or go back to checklist. And under one particular, oh no, this wasn't indented. I can also, if there's, let's say these are, oops, not checked off, but these areas need to be indented under tiling the rec room. I can certainly move those back and forth. So a lot of different great formatting, simple, easy to use formatting options. And I can add more on my list at any time. So let's say I need to fix some electrical and bring down a refrigerator. You may have noticed, if I just type some gibberish there, that the notes also have built-in spell check as well. That can be turned on and off if you don't like it or don't need it. I need it. So there, I've just added a few more steps, and I can simply check those off when they're done. Now, this is my real brain. I don't need to fix any electrical or bring down a refrigerator, so I'm simply going to select and delete that content down. There we go, just to bring things back right to the way they were. So very, very easy to sort of rearrange that content, create a checklist, really helps me stay on focus. Another feature that I really like in the notes are being able to link from thoughts in your notes to, or words, text in your notes to other thoughts in your brain. So you can see I'm trying to get all of this done before Thanksgiving, and I've got a little checklist item. Do all this work and then have a great Thanksgiving. But I'm going to select just the word Thanksgiving and click on another button up above that allows me to insert a link to a thought. So the brain actually searches for the word Thanksgiving elsewhere in this brain. And I've got 3 other thoughts that have the word Thanksgiving. I'm linking to this one. So I can type in whatever I want to link it to, but I'll double click. And now, as you can see, I've got a nice little link to Thanksgiving in that area of my notes. So this is a good example of when you want to tie two items together. There's a reference in your notes to another step, a website that you've attached, a document that needs to be reviewed. You don't necessarily need to visualize that relationship within the Plex, but you want to have that reference over in your notes. And this is a great time to do that. So you can just double click on any word in the brain or even a full sentence. I just select that and again, click on this button to link. There's no thought called finish bathroom walls, but if I do wall, I've got wallpaper, etc., drywall notes, and if I want to link this directly to that drywall thought, I just simply double click. So very easy to link those. And then, as you can see, I can link or follow that link rather. I click on the little icon with the link, and I go directly to that thought within the brain. So a nice tiny little feature within the brain, but really, really helps you for referencing important pieces of information. Now, I also want to go back to that area of my brain and share just a few more features with you. I want to talk a little bit about thought tags as well, tagging information. And maybe there's nothing to tag here. Basement is just getting the basement done. Below that, the next sort of steps in my process are building a basement shuffleboard and creating a basement gym. So you can see I'm sort of following a flow, not through a checklist here, but through the brain itself. So instead of another checklist item saying build a shuffleboard with steps down below, I go to the thought for shuffleboard, and there on the shuffleboard thought, you can see I've got some icons right there appearing in the notes and all of my resources available as other thoughts within the brain. But for thought tags, I don't see a thought tag here that's very important. I wanted to share an important thought tag with you. So I'm going to go back to Thanksgiving and down under recipes. So all of these different items are going to be completed and done for my project. I need to, in this scenario, make a pie, do the pie crust, stuffing, turkey, etc. We actually do 2 turkeys, one in the oven and one I am doing on the grill. And I recently found, so I'll do another little drag and drop to get something from the web into the grill. I've got grilling on my mind. Get it from the web into the brain. And so here I found this recipe for a stuffed turkey breast with maple bacon lettuce. It just sounds amazing. I'm going to cook this on the grill this year. And so I'm going to bring this into the brain. So I just click once again the icon and drag and drop right into the brain. So that's great. I've got my new thought there from Olive Magazine. And the brain renamed it for me with whatever the title tag was, which was lettuce, bacon, wrapped turkey, etc. And I haven't done this yet. I need to review this information. So this is just sort of one step here in my brain that's going to be happening in the upcoming weeks from my project. It needs a little bit of extra attention. So the brain is great in that there are many different ways to access or browse through your information. And here, once again, I'm referring to, rather than just having a linear list, here's a project I'm working on, here's step A, here's step Z, and everything in between. This is a step that needs a little bit of extra focus. I've never done this before, and I want to read the whole article, maybe even do a little more search on the web, see if I can find an easier article or something different. There's an ingredient I don't like, or whatever the case may be. So I am going to Alt-click on this particular thought. You can Alt-click on any thought in the brain, and it opens up the thought properties. So this is where I can rename the thought itself. So I'll just say bacon wrapped turkey. And I don't need the note the thought label is what's appearing down below. For the thought label, I'm going to remind myself needs research. So that's just for me. Notice I'll click away, so that takes the thought properties window away. And now when I mouse over the thought, I'm seeing, this needs a little bit of research. But once again, I probably won't just wander onto this thought until I'm making my shopping list come, I think that's Tuesday night on my checklist. And I want to check it out before then. So once again, I'll Alt-click to open up the thought properties. And on the thought tags, I'm going to apply a thought tag to this thought. Now, these are tags that I've set up. You can just type in a new name and create a new tag. So whatever is important to you. But it's very, very important or useful. I wouldn't say important, but useful for project management. You can have phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, or under review, passed, did not pass, etc. Regardless of what your project is, there's many different scenarios where you would have different types of tags. And a tag is an attribute to a particular thought. So here you can see I've got a little star system. The star system in my brain, 1 star means I don't like it, and 5 stars means I absolutely love it. I thought it was interesting that someone asked me once after demoing this, why would you even have, if you don't like it, why is it in your brain? Why do you have a 1-star thought? Wouldn't you just delete the thought because you don't like it? I'll show you what my 1-star thoughts are here in just a moment. But I'm first going to select the tag for this thought, which is a top priority. Now, my top priority tags, notice I get a little tag icon that appears on that thought. And when I mouse over, I am reminded that this is a top priority. From time to time, when I open my brain, I will view all of my top priority thoughts. It's like saying, hey, these are my 10 most important thoughts in this brain, or 10 things that need to get done. So I would say almost daily, I review my top priority thoughts. And I know that I name mine with the 3 dots so I can find it easily. So I type in a few dots. I've got top priority and medium priority. I actually don't have a category called low priority. It's sort of everything else, I guess, is low priority. But here I can go and see all my thoughts that are tagged top priority. So my kids love the Milwaukee Bucks, and they want to go see the Milwaukee Bucks. So this is actually a little Christmas reminder for myself to buy some Milwaukee Bucks tickets. Marinated and grilled portobello mushrooms. Once again, I mentioned I've got some vegetarians coming for Thanksgiving, so I'm researching grilled mushrooms as well. And I'm going to be doing the Door County Triathlon next year. So I'm just putting together a little training schedule for myself. So these are my personal top priority thoughts. And once again, when I visit this particular thought, tonight at 9, 10 o'clock, when I'm sort of browsing through my brain and seeing what's going on in my personal life, I'll be reminded, I want to read this article on bacon-wrapped turkey. So a nice, easy little step to draw attention to particular components of a project or to move items through a project phase. Once I understand how this works, it's no longer a top priority. I can remove that tag. I might even want to add additional tags. Let's say I really like how the maple bacon wrapped turkey thing turns out, and I want to also make it a 5-star. So it's a top priority to do more research. I want to find more recipes on this topic, but also I really love it. It's interesting to me. So I've given it 5 stars, and that gets my little happy face icon there. So I can see very easily it's a top priority, and it's one of my favorite thoughts in my brain. I mentioned to you earlier I would show you my 1-star thoughts. So I can find all my favorites versus sort of, I've got a 5-star ranking. It's just my own personal choice. But my 1-star thoughts, things that I really don't like, are the dentist. I can't delete this thought. I have to go to the dentist from time to time. I don't like it, but I have to do it. So it's actually, as you can see, a medium priority. I need to schedule an appointment. I didn't make it top priority. It's medium, and I don't like it. So I'm just reminded of that. And the other one is another sporting event that I did once, the Bradford Beach Triathlon. I don't need to badmouth them, but for me personally, there were some things about the event that I simply didn't like. And I left it in my brain so that 5 years from now, when I'm signing up for, I just do tiny little half marathons and races and triathlons from time to time for fun. And I'll be reminded not to sign up for this one. I won't go to that thought. There's, just a couple of details about it, the way it was managed. I didn't like it. So I just simply one-starred it there in my brain, and I kept that information. I apologize if anyone from Bradford Beach Triathlon is watching. So regardless, those are a couple of key steps, those thought tags, to add that added information. So you don't just have a document. You know whether that document is important or what phase that document is in, etc. The next step, and this is also, once again, a very important component in project management. It's sometimes very important to get it out of your mind and into a trusted source. And that's exactly what the brain does. I don't have to remember every ingredient in every recipe. I don't have to remember at any moment of any day what time the turkey goes on, etc. I've already made my note. I've planned my schedule. It's right there, and I can refer back to it at any time. But sometimes I want the brain to remind me that I need to do something, because my own organic brain doesn't quite cut it from time to time. So let's use as an example, it's time to put together my stuffing. I have a cornbread stuffing recipe that I absolutely love, and this needs to get started at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, the night before Thanksgiving. So I'm going to have the brain send me a reminder. And actually, now that I think about it, I'm going to go over to my own projects. I don't want my own reminder calendar to pop up. So I'm going to add a reminder for a writing project that I'm working on. So here I've got a company press release that's going to be going out. And I need to be reminded that this company press release, that's what needs to happen at 6 p.m. on Wednesday night. So I'm going to set up a brain reminder, a calendar event in the brain. So with this thought as the current active thought, I'm going to click on the plus tab and select to create an event. So it's that simple to create new events within the brain for specific thoughts. I'll show you in a moment how you can create events that are not associated with a thought. But first, company press release. This needs to go out on Wednesday night, the night before Thanksgiving, about a new policy that we're starting that we're very excited about in the new year. So new year plan. Make a little happy face. So this is just for myself, what I'll see in the reminder when I receive it. And I can set up when I want this reminder to happen. So this is going to happen. I'll click on the calendar. So I said the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So that's the 27th at, we'll say, 5 p.m. I've got it all ready to go. I just need to drop it in an email and send it out. But most importantly, I want the brain to remind me. Now, I actually want you to see what these reminders look like. So I'm going to change the date. I'm going to say this was supposed to happen on Thursday the 14th. And 10 minutes prior to Thursday the 14th at 5 p.m., the brain will remind me that I have an event taking place. And I'll have a nice link to this thought, etc. So I'm going to just click away. Notice there's no save icon. I can just click and closes that particular little reminder. I can continue. I was about to continue clicking through my brain, but I am presented with this screen. In the brain called My Projects, I've got a reminder. It's the company press release for the New Year plan. It was supposed to happen on November 14th at 5 p.m. So from here, I can snooze. The snooze is set to 10 minutes, or I can just click the X and delete that reminder. It took place. I no longer need to be reminded. I'll snooze just so you can see if I'm still in this brain. It'll pop up again. But let's open up the brain's timeline. I'm going to click on this button at the very top of the screen. And these are all of the upcoming events in this particular brain. I don't think this is a sample brain, so I don't have much content in here. But nonetheless, I can simply click on the button down below to go to today, the current date and time today, and it goes right to November 21st. I can view the entire day stretched out, week view, month view, year view, etc. Also, I won't have time to set this up today, and I don't want this particular brain set up with my Google Calendar, but you can actually synchronize your brain with your Google Calendar. so that events that take place in your brain, you'll receive email reminders if that's how you've got your Google Calendar set up, or events that go into Google Calendar will show up here in your brain. So you can keep the two in sync as well. That's another feature of the Brain application. But regardless, I wanted to share, let's go back to today. You can also create new events right here from the calendar. So today from 3 to 5, let's say I'm going to have from 3 to 5 a team support meeting. So I'm not associating it with any particular thought. I simply drag from the time frame. I can go to week view, day view, or month view to say, all right, this week I'm going to be out of the office, etc. And I've created that event. And I can double click to open up the event properties where I can color code this. So all my business events will show up in red, whereas personal events will show up in green. So let's say from 4 to 6, my kids are going to be in the office. That's sort of a more personal event. I'm just being reminded there. So it doesn't need to be associated in this scenario with a thought. It's just going to show up in my calendar. So, and I opened up the timeline here in this brain rather than my personal brain. So like I said, my own organic brain doesn't remember what's going on. I may have a doctor's appointment or something tomorrow that's showing up in my brain. So, but I keep track of all that personal information for, again, all the projects and everything going on in my life. It shows up in my brain in some capacity, whether it's on a thought or, in this case, in the brain's calendar or timeline. So the final component that I wanted to share with you today is that all of this information that has been going into this desktop application, I can access from multiple locations. And that is a really important part of project management as well. You are managing your projects when you're sitting at your computer. You might be managing your projects when you're out in the field or over the weekend or sitting in the back of a taxi. You need to be connected with all of your digital data. So with the Brain, we can actually sync to the Brain cloud. Now I'm going to click the sync button here, and this Brain has never been synced before. I'm uploading this Brain to app.thebrain.com. So that means I can log in on the Brain website. If you go to our website, thebrain.com, in the upper right, there's a button to log in. So you can see this Brain is slowly uploading. This particular Brain, my Laura Bloom Brain, is already synced. So I can access this Brain from the cloud. So let's go ahead and go to our website, thebrain.com. Oh, and actually I'm already logged in. Here's the Brain website, and here's the login button. I'm already logged in. So these are the Brains that I have accessible online. And if I install the Brain in another application or in another environment, I'll say, or operating system, I can access the same Brain database from multiple devices. So the Brain allows you to utilize your license on up to 4 machines. So that means I only have 3, but many people have more than me. So you can use one license on 4 machines. I have my licenses installed here on my work computer. I've got a traveling laptop, and I have my home computer as well, which is actually a Mac. So it's cross-platform compatible. I can open my Brain here at the office on my Windows machine, from my home, on my Mac, on my traveling laptop. And also, it doesn't require a seat, but you can open your Brain from your mobile devices as well. And that does not take up one of the 4 seats. So regardless, I've synced this Brain. I think it's still syncing. No, it's already done. So this Brain that I have just synced to the Brain, oops, let's get back to the home thought here. And if I refresh my Brains list, I'll see that my project management Brain shows up here and is accessible from the cloud. I see my Laura Bloom Brain, my personal Brain, so I'll just go to that one right now. But everything that I have accessible to me and available on the desktop is now available here in this Brain on the web. So I can go directly to my Thanksgiving thought. So I'll just do a search for that. There it is. So here is my Thanksgiving thought. and I can easily get to all of my recipes. So I've got my recipes down below, easy access. I haven't synced that one, so I still have some of my old notes in here. But all of that information is still accessible to me from the cloud or from my mobile device. So last component here I'll share with you before I go into questions is that I can open my Brain from my iPhone. And I'm not sure if you'll be able to see. There we go. Let's get this camera over on this end. There, it went right into one of the brains that I have access to, my canoeing brain. But here I'll open up my Laura Bloom brain. And of course, there I am on the basement thought because I was recently making a few notes for basement. And down below, I've got the button so I can get to my notes very easily. So there's that list we were looking at earlier for the basement. I'll go back. And more buttons down below for adding new thoughts. It's sort of hard to see with the reflection here, but I can add new thoughts, add new notes, new content right here from my mobile device. So all of the project management that I'm doing, I don't lose it when I step away from the office. I take it with me wherever I go. And with that, that's everything that I wanted to share with you today. Hopefully I gave you some great ideas on how to get started with your projects in the Brain. Once again, this Brain that I started out with today will be accessible to you online and available for you to download. And with that, let's see if there's any additional questions. It looks like Jay had his hands full in the GoToMeeting question panel. But one question that did come in was link labels versus link types, using link types in reports for categorization. So yes, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about link labels and link types. That's something that I didn't cover today that can be very, very helpful for project management. So let's go ahead and minimize my calendar. And I'm going to go into my marketing campaign. So as you can see, all the different components of my marketing campaign are laid out down below. My ad copy, my deadlines, my budget. The very first and very most important thing that I need to check out is my budget. I need to make sure that I'm staying on track. So I'm actually going to click on the link between marketing campaign and advertising budget, and I'll double click, and that opens up the link label. So I can simply type in a little link label here. So let's say next step. If I can spell, there we go, next step. And I'll highlight that yellow. And that has applied a link label. So when I mouse over that link, I can see the next step in my marketing campaign is my advertising budget. That's a really, really great feature within the Brain application. It provides that extra layer of context that a file and folder system can't provide. There's no way in a file and folder directory, if you've got all the different components of your project as subfolders, why are they there? What's the relationship? Are some retired? Are some just for references? Are some urgent, etc.? The link labels can actually apply or provide that additional context, that additional information. Also, specifically, the question was about the difference between link labels and link types. The advantage to creating a link type is that, number one, you can use it over and over again. So I don't have to constantly type in what's the relationship between these two thoughts. So for marketing campaign, let's say Debbie is going to be managing my marketing campaign. So I want to understand what Debbie's relationship is with campaign and with a marketing campaign. So I double click, and rather than just type in manager, I'll go down and create a new type. So Debbie is the manager. If I click on it again, I can go back into the little pencil and I can make all manager link types purple. Oh, there's my reminder for my project, my company press release that we set up earlier. All right, now I'll just hit the X to remove that reminder. Thank you, reminder. And so all of my managers will show up with this nice purple link. And if I go back over to my writing projects, Sarah is my manager. So notice now I can double click on the link and set her up very quickly as the manager for my writing projects. Now the final step and the final advantage of setting up link types, as opposed to just typing in a quick label for that one specific link, is that I can utilize those link types in filter out my reports. So if I open up the reports, and the reports are, by default, it's showing me just an alphabetical listing of all the thoughts in this brain. There's 120 thoughts. And if I say, all right, I want to see all thoughts with file attachments. I don't have many, but there's 13 thoughts with file attachments. Now I want to show all thoughts that are connected with a link type of manager. So I go to types, and at the bottom of the list, there's all my thought types, but there's all my link types manager. So here are my 4 thoughts that contain a link type of manager. So Debbie is linked, as you can see, to marketing campaign. Sarah, as you can see, is linked to my writing projects. So those are 2 of the advantages. Quick to set up those link types. And it's also very advantageous, so you can find all of, if you're setting up a link type of urgent, phase 1 moving into phase 2, that relationship is urgent. Or a relationship that you are questioning between 2 thoughts. Is, unit A going to be used for this particular project? So you're questioning the relationship there, can set up that link type and find and review all questionable relationships within your brain. So a couple of great advantages there. And thank you, Jay, for the next question, timestamp in the notes. I'm so surprised I didn't utilize that yet. Probably because I was working quite heavily in my personal brain, and I don't timestamp a lot of information there. But I certainly do in my business brain. So on a writing project, let's say I have an outline of my writing project. First, I need to review with corporate. Then I need to spell check. And then I want to have a peer review. And then I want to get some public feedback. Public feedback from VIP customers. So these are the 4 steps that have been recently assigned to me in a meeting with my boss. I'm going to make this a checklist. So I select the option to check these off. Let's close our reports there. Now, there's different ways that you can utilize the timestamp when this information was assigned to you. So let's go back up to the beginning, and let's uncheck that. So meeting with boss. So this meeting took place, and I'm just going to click this little calendar icon to add the current date and time. This can be formatted in your brain preferences, by the way. If you're on a 24-hour clock, or you format, this is obviously the very American way of typing in the current date and time. If you do the day, then the month, then the year, etc. All that highly customizable within the brain options preferences. So I view mine as November 21st, etc. And that's the current date and time for when this meeting took place. But I've already done the spell check. I just got that spell check done. I'm going to simply check it off the list. And I'm even going to, we'll check that off. And I'm even going to timestamp that as well. So I know specifically when that task took place. I like to do that quite a bit. I timestamp when a project was assigned or when a meeting took place. I'll utilize the timestamp as I just did, but most importantly, timestamp things that are being checked off a list, or when a project was completed. So that timestamp feature, just that tiny little feature there in the notes, but really, really, not only a time saver, but in many cases a lifesaver. I am on the phone with clients or sitting down with meetings. When did we make this change to the code or to the to the website or what have you? I'll timestamp those particular events that I'm responsible for, that I'm keeping track of. So I say, no, on November 21st, the spell checking was absolutely completed, and I can report back to my team when I finish that particular task. timestamp is a really, really, really great way to stay on top of your information in the brain. Again, I don't utilize that feature so much in my personal brain as much as I do in the business brains that I create. And with that, I see that we're right on top of the hour. I've got a couple of last questions that came in that I'm seeing actually that Jay has actually addressed, but I'll share them with the whole team as well. The difference between a thought type and a tag. That's a really, really great question. And I like to think of thought types as a main category. So let's say I've got, these are all my writing projects. I could create a thought type called project, or maybe they're active projects. So I'll type this as an active project. Let's go into my types list. Project completed, green lighted. It's a green lighted project. So in the Brain 10, as you can see, you'll see the actual green lighted project appear as the parent thought. And it's got these rounded edges letting me know that that is a thought type. And once again, in reports, I can say, all right, show me all of my green lighted projects as opposed to my back burner projects or low priority projects, etc. This one has been green lit, so that is the thought type. But it has many different attributes. So the attributes I typically have as the tags. I need to talk with the CEO, and I need to bring this up at the department meeting. So I've got 2 tags associated with this thought. You can only have one thought type associated with a thought. So I think of a thought type as a key category and a thought tag as a smaller or lesser attribute. And I'm quite often changing my thought tags as well. So I'll click and unlink it from the tag. The tags I tend to add and remove sometimes pretty often within a few different brains, sort of like moving a thought through a process, basically, phase 1, phase 2, etc. So play around with those and find whatever works best for you for thought tags and types. There's really no right or wrong there as well. And some people prefer one over the other. So I would say sample with both. You can always, in the Brain 10, if you decide, well, I really want to start using thought types, everything that is happening in a department meeting should be a thought type. So I'm going to right-click on this tag and say convert. I can convert a thought to a normal thought. In this case, I'm converting a thought tag to a thought type. So now when I go to this confirmation specifications, I see that it's that particular thought type within my brain. So something for you to play around with and just find what works best for you. And then the final question, I see we're right on top of the hour, and Knowlton wrote in with the final question that I see Jay didn't get to quite yet. So Jay, I'm going to beat you to the punch. Knowlton asked, can emails be dragged into notes? Emails can be, first off, the easiest way to get an email into the brain is just to copy and paste that content into the notes. That's what I like to do. Usually it's not the entire email. I don't need the person's signature. I don't need the paragraph that went before, the paragraph that went after. I need that important little, nugget of information right in the middle. The new password for the team server is ABCXYZ. So I'll copy that and paste it accordingly into my notes. That's the easiest way. Now with Gmail, you can drag and drop into the brain because every individual Gmail that you receive has a unique URL. So just like you would with a web page, you simply drag and drop that Gmail right into the brain. And I do that in my own personal brain as well. I recently purchased some epoxy from US Composites, and there's my Gmail shipping confirmation. So I can keep track of when it was delivered, how much it cost. I can refer back to that email. So you can drag and drop in Gmails directly into the brain. With Outlook, I don't use Outlook, but I know Outlook is very popular. And the same is true for Mac Mail. It's a 2-step process. You would first need to drag it onto your desktop and then into the brain. So not directly from Outlook. We used to support drag and drop directly from Outlook into the brain, but they changed sort of their I don't know the right terminology, the algorithms of how the application works. And that broke the compatibility within the brain. We have no control over that. We fixed it a few times, then they changed the algorithm again. It's Microsoft, and it stopped working again. So regardless, it still can happen, but it's a two-part process. Drag it onto your desktop and then into the brain, or each thought in the brain has its own containing folder. So I can right-click on a thought and say, open thought folder. So there it is. So here are the notes, and there's data. Any images and things would be in that data file. Notes are in the notes directory. But regardless, you can drag and drop to this directory as well. So if I just open up I don't have Outlook. Like I said, I don't use Outlook, but if you open up Outlook, you can drag and drop right in. I'll just use a file as an example. So if I want to get a file into the brain, this is just another way. It's easiest to drag and drop into the brain, but you can also just click and drag right into this directory as well. Now that's folder to folder on my OS, on my operating system, so it moved the file. Now this review.pdf is showing up as an attachment here in my brain, and I can click, and it's actually going to visualize that PDF file right there in my content window. As you can see, that's a sample document, so there's nothing really there. I don't need this sample document in my real brain. That'll confuse me in the future why it's under epoxy. So I'm going to click and delete that attachment from the brain application. So regardless, again, Knowlton, going back to your question with Outlook, drag and drop onto the desktop and then into the brain. And then Jason asked, can you drag and drop Outlook contacts using the same two-step process as per Outlook emails? Yes. Contacts. And also, because I know the question will come next, well, what about Outlook, what are they called, events from your Outlook calendar? I guess it's an event from your calendar. Those, again, the same process. Drag and drop it onto the desktop and into the brain, and then you've got it. A copy in the brain. It's not the actual link to the message. It'll be a .msg file. So it's a copy of the original message, which is kind of great because you can delete the Outlook message and still have the message archived in the brain. With contacts, it's a little different because if you change your contact in Outlook, that change is not reflected in the brain. You've got a copy of the old contact information as, I even forget, maybe a CVS file or something like that, or CVF, I can't remember what it's called. But it's a copy in the brain. And that's why I prefer to keep all of my contacts in the brain. I don't use Outlook for email or for contacts. All of my contacts, their phone numbers are either, if it's a personal contact, it's in this brain. If it's a business contact, I keep it in another brain. And it's just right there in the notes. So if I ever have to update their contact info, I just copy and paste it into the notes, overwriting the old contact info. So a couple of different ways to get Outlook items, as well as on a Mac. Drag and drop the same process onto the desktop and into the brain works just fine. So thank you everyone for joining me. I can see that we are over the hour now. So thank you everyone for joining me. It's a particularly fun webinar for me, the topic of project management. Just because, like I said at the very, very beginning, no two projects are ever alike, and the flexibility of the brain, the visualization of the brain, and having access to all of these disparate resources, whether it's phone numbers, contact information, due dates, reminders, web pages, files, documents, emails, images, and notes, and checklists. Again, all those different disparate items that I just mentioned, rather than keeping them out in Outlook applications and browsers and files and folders, all of it can come right here into the brain for easier project management in the future. So I implore you to download a free copy of the brain for 30 days. When you download the brain and have that 30-day free trial, any brain database that you create, you can continue using after the 30 days, whether you choose to continue on with the free version or to purchase a license, you can still utilize those same brain databases. So it's really a great advantage to utilize those 30 days for free to see if the application is going to work for your next project management item. So thanks everyone for joining me. It's always a pleasure to introduce the brain. If you have future questions, you can contact us at support@thebrain.com. We're happy to hear from you. Have a wonderful rest of the week. And as always, enjoy your brain. Thanks everyone. Bye.